All right, 90s enthusiasts, buckle up because today on that 90s pod, we're diving headfirst into the story of Amazon. Remember those dial-up days, the thrill of AOL, and how absolutely radical online shopping felt?
Oh, it was a different world back then. But before we get lost in nostalgia, let's set the scene. The internet in the early 90s was like the Wild West, full of potential but mostly uncharted territory.
So true. But then came this pivotal moment in 1991 that changed everything. The World Wide Web opened up for commercial use. Suddenly, the internet wasn't just for academics and government folks anymore. It was open for business.
Exactly. And that shift really set the stage for companies like Amazon to emerge. But remember, this was a time when Microsoft and Apple were already giants. Tech optimism was in the air.
Totally. People really believed that technology could change the world, and Amazon tapped right into that energy. It's fascinating how Jeff Bezos, Amazon's founder, had this aha moment. He saw the limitations of physical bookstores, how much space they had, and envisioned a world of limitless selection online.
Yeah, what's fascinating is that at the time, this idea was revolutionary. No one had really cracked the code of online retail, yet Amazon was truly venturing into uncharted territory.
Now, speaking of uncharted territory, I have to confess, I remember my very first online purchase from Amazon. It was this super rare CD. The 90s, I was a little nervous about ordering something physical through this thing called the internet. But when it arrived safe and sound, it felt like a glimpse into the future.
I bet that sense of novelty was a huge part of Amazon's early appeal. But they didn't just rely on the wow factor. They were pioneers in features that we now take for granted. Think about their user-friendly interface, a stark contrast to some of the clunky websites back then, and their personalized recommendations. Genius.
Oh, absolutely. And don't even get me started on customer reviews. Giving regular people a platform to share their honest opinions, good or bad, about a product, that was unheard of in traditional retail.
It was a brilliant move that completely shifted the power to the buyer. Suddenly, you weren't just relying on what the company told you, you were hearing directly from people who would actually use the product.
It created a sense of community and trust around Amazon, which was so important in those early days of e-commerce. Before we go any further, let me just take a quick second to say, if you're digging this blast from the past and loving these 90s insights, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. And hey, why not share the podcast with your friends? Spread the 90s love.
Absolutely. Now, where were we? Yes, the early days of Amazon. It's important to remember that they didn't just stick with books. They quickly expanded into music electronics. It was like they were laying the groundwork for the everything store they are today.
It's wild.
Yeah.
And as they expanded, they were also influencing the entire e-commerce landscape. Companies like eBay and Alibaba, they all followed in Amazon's footsteps.
Amazon wasn't just reflecting the rise of e-commerce, they were shaping it.
Okay, get this. Did you know that the very first book Amazon ever sold was Fluid Concepts and Creative Analogies by Douglas Hofstadter? Pretty fitting for a company about to revolutionize thinking, wouldn't you say?
It really is. And speaking of fitting, can you believe Amazon almost had a completely different name?
Wait, what? Tell me more.
Bezos initially wanted to call it Cadabra. Imagine that. Ordering from cadabra.com.
Oh, wow. It does have a certain mystical ring to it. I can kind of see why they changed it.
Well, apparently a lawyer misheard it as cadaver. I guess that sealed the deal.
Smart move, Jeff. Now, here's another one that might blow your mind. Amazon Prime, that magical service that delivers packages faster than you can say instant gratification. It didn't launch until 2005. Can you believe there was life before Prime?
Hard to imagine, right? But those early days were crucial in setting the stage for Amazon's dominance.
All right, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's rewind back to those early days and really unpack what made Amazon so successful.
Sounds good. There are some key strategies that really helped them take off.
Okay, so we've talked about Amazon's innovative features and their early expansion. But as we all know, the road to success is rarely smooth. As Amazon entered the 2000s, they faced a pretty massive obstacle. The dot-com bubble burst.
Yes, the dot-com bubble. It was a time of both incredible excitement and incredible risk in the tech world. Lots of online companies were getting huge valuations based on potential, but many weren't actually profitable.
Right. It felt like everyone was investing in anything with a .com at the end of its name. And when the bubble burst, it was like a digital reckoning. Tons of online businesses went under. But Amazon, they weathered the storm.
What's fascinating is that they didn't just survive, they thrived. It's like they used the chaos of the dot-com crash to their advantage.
So, it must have been a really turbulent time.
Well, they doubled down on what made them unique. Remember that customer obsession we talked about? That became even more important during the downturn. They also continued to innovate even when others were pulling back.
And they were constantly expanding into new markets. It wasn't just books and CDs anymore. They really started to build out the everything store.
Exactly. One of their key moves was launching Amazon Marketplace. This was a brilliant strategy that allowed third-party sellers to offer their products on Amazon's platform. It was a win-win. Sellers got access to Amazon's massive customer base, and Amazon dramatically increased their product selection.
That's such a smart move. Turn potential competitors into partners. It reminds me of another one of their groundbreaking innovations, Amazon Web Services, or AWS. Honestly, AWS deserves its own deep dive.
Oh, absolutely. AWS was a game changer in the tech world. Now, to understand why AWS was so revolutionary, we need to understand a little bit about cloud computing. Imagine instead of having to buy and maintain your own expensive servers to run your website or application, you could rent space on someone else's servers. That's essentially what cloud computing is, and AWS was a pioneer in making it accessible and affordable.
So it's like renting an apartment in the digital world instead of having to build your own house.
Exactly. And it completely transformed the way companies think about their IT infrastructure. It's no exaggeration to say that AWS was a major factor in the explosion of online services we see today.
Wow. It's mind-blowing how this online bookstore ended up revolutionizing cloud computing. And speaking of revolutionizing things, let's talk about the Kindle. I remember when it launched in 2007, a lot of people thought dedicated e-readers were doomed to fail. But once again, Amazon proved the doubters wrong.
The Kindle is a perfect example of how Amazon anticipated a major shift in consumer behavior. They saw that digital books were the future, and they built a device and a platform that made buying, downloading, and reading ebooks seamless and enjoyable.
The Kindle wasn't just a piece of hardware. It was a gateway to a whole new world of digital content. The Kindle store became a massive marketplace for ebooks. It's like they created their own digital bookstore. Only this time the shelves were truly infinite.
And it wasn't just about the books themselves, it was about the entire reading experience. The Kindle's e-ink display made it feel like you were reading a real book, and features like adjustable font sizes and built-in dictionaries enhanced the experience.
It was truly innovative, and it paved the way for the digital content revolution we see today. From streaming music and movies to online courses and audiobooks, it's incredible to think how much Amazon has shaped our digital lives.
Absolutely. But for all their focus on technology and innovation, they never lost sight of the human element. One of their core values is customer service. Remember how groundbreaking it was to be able to track your packages online?
Oh yeah, no more anxiously waiting by the window wondering if your order would ever show up. Amazon made the entire shipping process transparent and reliable.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's Amazon Prime. It's not just about fast and free shipping. It's about creating a sense of membership, a community of loyal customers who get special perks and exclusive deals.
And they really nailed that sense of community. It's like Prime members have their own little club with access to things that non-members don't.
And it goes back to that customer obsession we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
They're constantly gathering data, analyzing customer behavior, and trying to anticipate our needs before we even know we have them.
It can be a little bit creepy, but also kind of impressive, right? It's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why they've been so successful at staying ahead of the curve.
It's definitely a unique approach. And speaking of staying ahead of the curve, let's shift gears a bit and talk about some of the lesser-known aspects of Amazon's rise.
Wait, before we do that,
Yeah.
I just wanted to remind everyone that if you're enjoying this trip down memory lane with that 90s pod, be sure to hit that subscribe button and spread the 90s love with your friends. We love taking you back to this iconic decade and uncovering the stories behind the brands that shaped our world.
Well said. Now let's dive into some fascinating trivia about Amazon's early days.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground from Amazon's humble beginnings as an online bookstore to their expansion into cloud computing, digital content, and beyond. But as with any company that achieves this level of success, there's always another side to the story.
That's right. It's important to acknowledge that Amazon's rise hasn't been without its controversies. They've faced criticism over the years on a range of issues, from their impact on small businesses to concerns about worker treatment and environmental sustainability.
Absolutely. And these are complex issues that deserve thoughtful discussion. We can admire Amazon's innovation and business acumen while also recognizing the need for responsible growth and ethical practices.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance, and it's an ongoing conversation. It's also worth noting that Amazon has often responded to criticism by making changes and implementing new initiatives. They've raised their minimum wage, invested in renewable energy, and created programs to support small businesses.
It seems like they're at least trying to address some of these concerns, which is encouraging. But ultimately, it's up to each individual to decide how they feel about Amazon and the role they play in our lives.
For sure. And I think that's what makes this conversation so interesting. Amazon has become so deeply embedded in our daily routines that it's hard to imagine life without them.
It's true. Think about it. From ordering last-minute birthday gifts to catching up on our favorite shows to even getting groceries delivered, Amazon has become a one-stop shop for so many of our needs.
And as they continue to grow and expand into new areas like healthcare and artificial intelligence, their influence is only going to increase.
It's both exciting and a little bit daunting to think about what the future holds for Amazon and for us, the consumers.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is there anything from those early days, those formative years in the 90s that might hint at where Amazon is headed next?
That's a great question. I think one clue lies in their relentless pursuit of convenience and their willingness to experiment. They're constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible, whether it's with drone delivery, cashierless grocery stores, or voice-activated shopping.
It seems like their vision is to make shopping so seamless and integrated into our lives that it becomes almost effortless.
Exactly. They want to anticipate our needs and make it as easy as possible to fulfill them all within their ecosystem.
It's a fascinating and perhaps even a little unsettling vision of the future. But one thing's for sure, Amazon has left an undeniable mark on the world. They've changed the way we shop, the way we consume media, and even the way we think about technology.
And they've shown that a simple idea executed with relentless passion and innovation can truly change the world.
Well said. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the rise of Amazon. We hope you enjoyed this trip back to the 90s and learned something new along the way. And hey, if you're loving these 90s insights, be sure to subscribe and share this episode with your friends. We'll be back next week with another fascinating deep dive into a 90s icon. Until then, stay radical.